Day 2 of the Digital Agri-Food Summit Innovation Showcases. I'm Olivia Carver, your host this afternoon, and I'm also the host of Food Agility's AgTech Finder podcast. These showcases are concise presentations of the latest agricultural research and innovation, real-world case studies, and panel discussions responding to the theme Paddock to Profit. First up today is Edwina Beveridge, co-owner of Blantyre Farms, a highly productive mixed farming and livestock business situated near Young in New South Wales, incorporating broadacre cropping with beef, wool and lamb production and an indoor piggery. Edwina is here to showcase how they've used technology in their operations to repurpose waste. Please welcome Edwina.
So this is Blantyre Farms, our farm near Young in New South Wales. We have 2,000 sows, which is how you measure the size of a pig farm. We have about 20,000 pigs on hand in every day of the week, which means we sell about 40,000 pigs in a year. We have two separate sites. So one is a breeder site and the second is a grower site. They're just a few kilometres apart. Because we like a challenge, we do also have sheep, cattle and cropping. So our farm is 100% conventional. What that means is our pigs are all in sheds. They're all on concrete floors where the manure drops through the slat in the floor, which is for a great reason, as you'll find out in a minute. We're quite different on our farm. We feed our pigs 100% liquid feed. There's probably only about 5% of the industry that does that in Australia. And again, it gives us a lot of, has opened up a world of opportunity for us. We have 45 staff. Most of them who've been there for a very long time. We also have a few of those from overseas. During COVID, we found it very hard to find staff for the first time ever, and we have a few Pacific Islanders who've really been a godsend and are just fabulous guys. Next, I have a quick video. I really love what we do. It is fantastic to be producing something that I know is sustainable and is really, good for the world, and to be doing our bit. So we've set up a system where we can capture our methane gas from our pig manure and turn it into electricity. It's fantastic because that was our fourth biggest cost, and we have now completely eliminated that and turned it into a revenue item. We also feed our pigs a lot of food waste. That's pretty exciting because it saves us buying a lot of grain. Last year we used 13,500 tonnes of food waste products, so things that would have otherwise gone to landfill. We can produce a lot of pork at a very affordable price. We can do it without a huge amount of land, using food waste, recycling our manure, even making our own electricity. So I think farms like ours are the answer to food security. Thank you, Rabo, who made the video. Righto, next is the power of pig poo. So you've seen a little bit of it in our video. So the manure goes from our pig sheds through a pipe into the black dam that you can see with the black cover on the top. From there, there's anaerobic activity in the manure that creates methane. The cover over the top of the dam captures the methane and allows it to use it as a fuel in a generator. So this is our generators in the green shipping containers, and each generator is 100 kilowatts, so we have 3 or 4 of those. We supply all of our own electricity needs on our pig farm, and we sell about 40% of the power back to the grid. In case you couldn't tell, I'm an accountant, so I love the numbers on this. The big saving in this, setting up this system, was in not having a power price, so we no longer buy electricity, we now sell it. I say I'm the first carbon farm in Australia because we were the first farms registered under the Carbon Farming Initiative. We've now been kicked out of it because we're in it for so long and our project is no longer considered additional. But because all that methane gas was previously just going up into the atmosphere, we're now capturing it and destroying it. Methane has a global warming potential of 25 times carbon dioxide, meaning it's 25 times worse. So because of that, we're able to generate carbon credits as well. So the project had a 2-year payback period, which is pretty handy in any accounting terms. So there you go. Who would think you could do all that with some pig shit? Okay, we don't stop there. Now it's the power of pigs. So because we use a liquid feed system on our farm, we can use a lot of food waste items that other people can't use. Generally, we look for anything that is liquid and hard to handle, and if someone else can't use it, hopefully that makes it economic. Now, having said liquids, up here, the picture of the pallets, there's a lot of juice and milk. We use, on average, we unpack a semi-trailer and a half every day of waste, dairy and juice products. Mostly they've gone out of date. Sometimes they haven't even gone out of date. The supermarket won't take fresh milk unless it's got 2 days used by date, or 10 days used by date on it. So we get to get a lot of product that is waste, and we unpack it and feed it to the pigs. We've built our own machinery to unpack it, and then we recycle as much of the packaging as we can. The other picture on the back of a truck, that's bread in bags. So again, the bakeries make more bread than is sold every day, so what isn't sold in that day gets sent back to the baker. We take some of that waste. We've built a machine that can get the bag off the bread, and then we use the bread to feed our pigs. Some other examples, we use waste fish fingers, we use pasta that has had something go wrong with it, flour, rice. I should be talking to Sunrise. I see them here. If you've got any food waste, give me a ring. Sometimes it might have weevils in it. It might be one weevil in a bag, in a whole pallet, and then the whole load gets rejected. So we can take that. Sometimes it's in the processing that something went wrong with it in the process, and it gets sent to us. There are some nightmare examples. I didn't know what ganache was. I now do. I said yes, I'd love to take 100 pallets of ganache in buckets. And my theory was we were going to tip the bucket outside, and the ganache, which if anyone else like me didn't know is like icing, was just going to run out. The ganache set like concrete. We tipped the bucket upside down. Nothing happened. Some of the guys at work still haven't forgiven me. We had to angle grind the buckets off the ganache. So that one probably didn't make so much money as I hoped it would have. There's plenty of examples like that of things that have gone badly wrong. At the moment, we're focused, we have a wet unpacking line, which we put the juice through. We're very focused on a dry unpacking line. So we're making the equipment doesn't exist, so we're making it ourselves where we can, what my aim is that we can unpack dry products like pasta and rice in bags. I also want to be able to get the bread through it. Spaghetti is a nightmare because spaghetti bridges up. So like if you have a truckload and you put a truck of penne pasta in it, you can get 20 tonnes in the back of the truck. When you put spaghetti in, you get like 1 tonne because it all bridges up and fills the truck up. So dealing with these different properties of the packaging and the products is our challenge at the moment. We have had some lovely accolades as a result. Australian Pork, our industry body, has recently done some benchmarking on life cycle assessments on pig farms. We won. We're nearly carbon neutral, and this is pretty impressive for meat. So I know David was up here quoting that he's carbon negative, but he's growing cotton. This is for producing meat. So hence my answer why, if you want to save the planet, or I should say when someone asks me what my job is, I say I feed the world and save the planet at the same time. I'm going to be amazing because I'm running early. So I love farming. I love living in Young. The future's bright. My son's name's Sam, not Jack, by the way. We're just making good use of the overall fashion. I hope my kids will want to take on the best job in the world. And I'm really happy to be here presenting to you and talking to you a little bit about what we've done on our pig farm. Thank you.
My Climate View is a collaboration between CSIRO and the Bureau of Meteorology. It's been designed together with Australian farmers as part of the Child Climate Services for Agriculture program, thanks to funding from the Australian Government's Future Drought Fund. Stephanie Dickson is the Customer Engagement Lead for Climate Services for Agriculture and our next presenter. Please welcome Stephanie.
Thank you. So, Climate Services for Agriculture, as it was introduced, is funded by the Department of Agriculture, Fisheries and Forestry under the Future Drought Fund, and is aiming to contribute to the Better Climate Data initiative under the Future Drought Fund. It gives 60 years of historical information and future climate projections for the purpose of long-term business planning and climate adaptation. To show you, we've developed several products under this program, including an API service that delivers data to be built on by other products and services. We have a map view product that shows the difference in climate across Australia and across time, and primarily My Climate View, which is the tool that we'll be looking at today. It's an online tool, and I will show you that now.
Your location, your commodity, your climate. No matter where you are across Australia, preparing for the future of your farming enterprise is critical. That's why we've developed My Climate View. It's a free digital product designed to help Australian farmers understand what the future climate might mean for their location. My Climate View provides farmers and their advisors with past climate data, seasonal forecasts and future climate projections at a 5 square kilometre resolution right across Australia. Climate information is tailored to meet the needs of a range of agricultural commodities, from meat to grains to horticulture and many more. This means that farmers can easily assess how climate factors that matter to their business could change into the future. For example, a wheat producer can see how the timing and intensity of seasonal rainfall in their region might change over time and how that might impact the way they farm. We've built this tool by talking with Australian farmers. Their valuable feedback has helped improve My Climate View, which will help Australian farmers and communities prepare for the future. Start using My Climate View for your farm planning. My Climate View is developed by the Bureau of Meteorology and CSIRO as part of the Climate Services for Agriculture program, which is funded by the Australian Government's Future Drought Fund. For more information about My Climate View and the Climate Services for Agriculture program, search Climate Services for Agriculture on the Department of Agriculture, Fisheries and Forestry website.
Great. So if you'd like to have a look at your own location, we've got the QR code there. And just keep in mind that this product is publicly available and free for everyone to use, but it's still being developed until at least July next year. And we have another release coming out in November. So there's still more development. So we'd love to get any feedback on how people can use it and make it more useful to the ag community. So, in terms of how are people already using it, I've got a couple of stories here from our users. They're not exactly made up, but they're based on a true story. We've changed a few vital details so that the main characters can't be identified. And these have been collected over the last 2 years by myself and my team as we travel around Australia talking about how do farmers respond to drought and climate threats and shocks, and how can we give them some data that will make more informed decisions to help them as they address these issues in their businesses. So the first one comes from Western Australia. It was a mixed orchardist. He had multiple different fruits across a large property, and he was really particularly interested in cherries. He was saying, I've had these cherries in for several years and they've just never been able to get a good harvest due to fruit cracking. So we were looking at rainfall days during fruit set in his location and seeing how likely is it in the future for things to improve or to change. So looking at this data, you can see we've got a dot for every individual year for the last 60 years, with the range from the 10th to the 90th percentile shaded in, and then a line for the average. Towards the right, we've got the future projections, again, the 90th to 10th percentile of model outcomes, and then the line for the averages, just to show the overall trends for this location. So what would we say about this? It depends really on the business and what he was trying to do. He was looking at not being in the business for that much longer. He was in his 50s, going on 60s, and said he only really wanted to work for another 10, 15 years. And looking at this data, if he's having problems now, it looks like that's going to continue. If he wanted to play a really long game, it's possible that a orchard that lasted over 30 years was going to be a more viable option. One point to make about the previous farmer is that he had diversified his crops very widely, and in that regard he had a lot of opportunity to experiment and to work with his to try different crops and different opportunities. So it wasn't a make or break decision that he was using that data for. This one is a little bit different. It's from a sheep farmer in northern South Australia, and they had rather unexpectedly inherited the property a little earlier than they were expecting, and had a very young family at the time. So he was working as a family on the farm and wanted to get a really realistic look of what kind of asset was he likely to pass on to his children at the end of his working life, and what kind of adaptations did he have to do now to make sure that that was a real benefit to pass on. There's no tool that can help you make that decision based on so many variables, but this is just some data that can help go into that decision. So what we're looking at here is sheep fertility, days over 32 degrees, which are likely to affect sheep fertility over the joining period. And so again, we've got the dots for the individual years, the 90th to 10th percentile shaded range, and then the averages. And you can see that there's a big difference going up to 48 days where the sheep's fertility is affected. So part of this discussion was talking about shade and shelter initiatives and different projects that people could get involved in to help build the resilience on the property long term. So I've spoken to a lot of people here who have networks of farmers that they speak to regularly and they want to be involved with, and would like to use the Climate Services for Agriculture data in their engagement. One of the challenges is, though, it's easy to talk about climate and adaptation in a room where everybody is so progressive and everybody understands what needs to be done. It can be a challenge to go out into the industry and talk about climate and climate change and what needs to be done. So we are running a trainer-trainer program currently, which helps people fill in the gaps around historical and future data sets, gridded data versus weather stations, climate change, and how to discuss climate and using models in decision making. So with 40 seconds to go, I'd just like to say it's a real privilege to present the data of such a wide team, and thank you so much for having us today.
Our next speaker is Associate Professor at Central Queensland University, Amy Cosby, a leading practitioner and researcher in the field of student and teacher engagement within the agricultural industry, and here to discuss her efforts to design programs which showcase and attract the next generation agricultural workforce to the industry. Please welcome Amy.
Thanks for having me here today. Although it says I work for CQ, I actually live in South Gippsland in Victoria, so pretty far from central Queensland. Our team of researchers and project officers work across the agricultural supply chain and education continuum. So this diagram here just gives you a bit of an idea of the work that our team does from primary schools all the way to people working on farm. So our team is a group of researchers all focused on having creating evidence-based solutions to our workforce problem. And we believe that starts with small children, so all the way from primary school all the way to the community. This slide here just gives you a bit of a snapshot of how the impact our team had in 2022. So we saw over 4,300 students, and with those students we engaged in a range of hands-on, practical, ag-tech, STEM-based activities, exposing them to industry partners and agricultural workplaces to show them what the world of agricultural work looks like today. So my presentation will focus on some of our school-based initiatives and projects that we had over the last couple of years, and we'll hear from some of the people that participated in them as well. Importantly, as a bunch of researchers, our projects are all focused on an evidence-based research framework. So we collect data from students, teachers, industry, to try and measure the impact our programs are having. So education, it's a long game. So if we're working with primary school students, if they do enter the ag industry, we're probably looking 12 to 15 years after they've been exposed to some of our activities. And we're definitely not taking all the credit if they do. But I think it's important as we approach industry and business and government to fund these sorts of initiatives that we collect as much data as we can to show the impact of them, not to replicate things that don't work, and to share that data across the whole sector so that we can learn from each other to make sure that the programs that we're all running have the biggest impact possible. In 2021, our team ran the largest ag knowledge survey of primary and secondary school students in Australia. So we had over 5,000 students complete this survey from grade 3 to year 10, and we wanted to know what they knew about agriculture. In America, they have what's called some threshold learning outcomes, so what you should know when you're 5 all the way through to year 12, what you should know about agriculture. We don't have that in Australia. Food and fibre is in the national curriculum, but it's quite broad and I guess vague. So what we were trying to do with this survey is work out, do young people know that cotton comes from a plant? What is their perception of agricultural careers? Do they think they all need to be based in rural and regional areas? So promisingly here, there's a few of the results from that survey. Promisingly, agricultural knowledge does increase with age. So the older you are, the more you know, which is good. But we still do have some work to do with the perception of careers of ag being very traditional. That farmer, not a lot of young people knew. I think it was about 8% recognised banker as a career that you could have in agriculture. Our Kids to Farms program we ran with AgForce and NT farmers. We saw over 3,000 students across those 3 years, and we ran with them small, short, hands-on activities showcasing what happens in agricultural businesses from a STEM and digital technology perspective, and then took them out to a farm. So the whole idea of this program, the name, Kids to Farms, was to expose them to what happens on a farm. So as Edwina has already spoken to us, it's not just growing food and fibre, there's lots of different things that occur on a farm. So we don't just want young people to have those hands-on roles, but we want them to be the innovators, to find solutions for us on property, to be in that business management as well. Our Excited for Careers in Agriculture was funded by the National Careers Institute, and we were working with 7 industry bodies to showcase local jobs in local regions. So if we look to Gippsland, Gippsland is a big dairy area, so we've partnered with Gips Dairy, and we expose primary and secondary school students to jobs using the Holland's theory, RISEC career theory. So we got them to think about what were their interests. If they were a student that particularly liked artistic activities, they liked communication, perhaps they'd like to be a brand manager for an up-and-coming dairy company. If they were really into investigative and realistic type activities, they might be a scientist or more hands-on on farm roles. So this project aimed to showcase that to students that whatever they want to do, they can have that career in agriculture. And those jobs that are sometimes invisible to young people, we tried to showcase it to them.
I think the most fun activity for me was exploring the winery and learning about the different ways that you can make wine and how it gets from the vineyard to the winery.
My favourite activity was the pH testing and exploring the different types of soil. It was my favourite because you got to get your hands dirty.
Something I've learnt is how much, overall, how much effort goes into making wine and all the aspects of it, and how there's so much that people do to...
The auction got so hectic that made it so much more fun than it was. I think the milk one was fun. I learned about protein can make you stronger. The more protein, the more stronger you can get.
So you can see there that young people, they learnt about agriculture, about production and about their food, but also the jobs that exist. Our team recently finished some research with AgriFutures that looked around what careers advisors and school teachers knew about agricultural careers and the supports they needed to better promote agricultural careers in schools. We had a large number of teachers complete a survey, and we also had 10 focus groups across New South Wales with private, metro, government, rural, a whole range of schools. And what we found out is that there is a wide range of careers advice that occurs in schools, and what you get in one school is not replicated in another. So what we provide as supports and resources can't all be the same. We're currently doing that second stage of this project where we're rolling out resources across Australia to try and see if we can improve the quality and also the amount of times that careers advisors and teachers promote agricultural careers to school students.
It's absolutely crucial for students to get out of the classroom and to get into industry practice basically and actually see what actually does happen. Yes, you can highlight the careers, but it's really about communicating what those people are doing and what interests them, and then trying to tap into those kids in terms of their strengths, which is a beauty of this program, is that they actually look at the person that's in front of them, what are they interested in, what are their strengths, and then they're mapping that. So hey, if you've got this skill set, this is transferable into these careers, which often they haven't even come across those before, because often they just think, okay, careers is what mum and dad do. It's absolutely crucial for us to connect with industry, because agriculture is just so diverse that we don't even know 1/10 of what actually happens out there. And even if we think that we went through uni and learnt a little bit about it, it changes so often and every season is different. So you have to keep learning.
It creates that interest, it creates that potential for opportunity. They know, they're becoming aware of what's available to them and what they can access, right here. I think it's easy to say we're the beef capital of Australia, but then when you actually get in and have a look and get involved and see what you can actually do, it's not just something that sort of just is, it's something you can become part of.
And the crucial part of our success in our projects is always industry involvement. So we want to make sure that we're showcasing the careers that are emerging, that they're coming in, what industry needs. So having industry role models, so students can't be what they can't see. So getting to see them, getting to see someone like them, they can see themselves in that role, and to hear and ask them, what they like, what they don't like about their job and how they got there is really crucial to our programs. And we just have a PhD student just finishing up who's investigating the role of industry in school-to-industry partnerships.
It's really important to demonstrate the breadth of roles and careers in our industry. I think there's a misconception that we just have winemakers and grape pickers. It's important for us to demonstrate what roles are available in this industry. It's an industry that's right on the doorstep of these schools, and they often don't get the opportunity to get out and have a tour of a vineyard, to see a working winery, to listen to people working in the industry.
It's critically important that we can.
I'm just watching the time going in front of me. So just the few key takeaways from all of our research projects is that students need repeated exposure to the ag industry. We can't think that taking them out on a one-day tour or 50-minute classroom lesson is going to be enough. And that's why it's everyone's responsibility in agriculture to, when they get the opportunities, I know we're all busy, but to take that school group to go and speak to your local schools, or be available when they're needed to really showcase our industry and tell them why it's important. Teacher professional development is harder with that teacher shortage, getting teachers out of schools. We've found that what we're doing now is a lot of incidental professional teacher development. Our team goes in, runs these activities in the classroom. We show the teachers how they can do it with their students, and what we're finding is they don't need us necessarily to run that activity next year because they're integrating it into their classroom themselves. Virtual activities, brilliant. Videos, fantastic, but nothing beats getting kids out onto farms, into agricultural workplaces, factories, manufacturing, all of that sort of stuff to really see and feel and speak to the people that are in those jobs. So thank you.
Next, we welcome AgriWebb's Vice President, Research and Development, Dr. Kenneth Sabir. He's worked with educators and universities to develop strong pathways for integrating graduates into the agricultural industry. His presentation will explore what the industry can do to attract the next generation. Please welcome Kenny.
And thanks for the great presentation, Amy. And thank you for being able to present today. We're also working with Amy, getting AgriWebb into the curriculum at the secondary school level. But today's talk, I'll be talking about universities and how we're working with universities. And this is the problem we're all addressing. We've all heard it. How do we feed more people without using more land while lowering emissions? I'm going to zoom through these slides at the start to give some context about our problem. So AgriWebb, we started in 2014. We acquired Farm Wizard in the UK in 2018, and we opened up Denver in 2020. So when we're talking about that problem, there's no silver bullet. We all have to do our part, and we picked livestock, and that's the area that we're focused in. We do also support mixed operations as well. So this is our numbers, some vanity stats. The interesting one here is the 60 million animals through the system over the last 8 years, which is about, with Australia alone, it's about a quarter of Australia's livestock under AgriWebb management, 14,000 livestock producers. And this is the problem we're addressing. So farmers do love their data. They've been collecting it for decades, and it's in their notebook in their top pocket. And though it gets lost when it goes through the wash, but there's all the advantages of having this digitized. Apart from the obvious ones about how to improve your business, you don't know your business unless you know your data, there's the succession planning as well. There's coordination across the farm, working with, multi-team members. So how do we collect this information? How do we digitize this? We had to collect it at the source. So to collect it at the source, we had to make it a holistic platform. So I think animal records alone, I think we've got like 26 animal records, but we do inventory and pasture, as well, paddock, and some basic cropping as well. Had to make an intuitive interface so farmers will actually use it. Moving your mobs in real life, you just drag and drop it. And then from there, that simple operation, we can integrate with the SIBO labs, work out the satellite imagery to work out how much feed and off is left, and indicate to the farmer, hey, you've got 43 days left of grazing before you're overgrazing. And so we can do the maths crunching in the background to help the farmer out, make their job more efficient. And also working in Australia, our connectivity sucks. We had to make it work offline as well. So you can do it out in the yards. Then when you get back home, it will automatically sync, supports multiple users, and sync conflicts. All right, so engineering problems. Hiring is hard. Did anyone try hiring engineers in 2020, 2021? How do you find the good ones? The good ones seem to be getting snapped up. We're from Sydney, snapped up by the giants, the Google, the Atlassians, the Canvas. And I remember when I did my degree, there was like 40 people start. By the end, you realize there's about 3 people that really, really love coding. And the others get into all other sorts of jobs. So if we could actually get them in the room, if we could actually tell them about our problems, in that hey, we have to work with satellites, we have to work with IoT, you have to work with these event sourcing databases. It's like a time machine for a database. You can see your farm at any point in time. We have to work with a local first offline sync. They go, wow, this is amazing. No one's told me about this. AgTech's great. This is where the really exciting problems are, if we can get in front of them. Another problem is we have a product team. They're making roadmaps for engineering. It's like, this is what we've got to do. How do we stick to the schedule when some things are easy, making this website, making this graph? Some things are really, really hard. The hard things often get deferred. Or if you do it, the time can blow out because you're not really sure how difficult it is until you start it, until you prototype it. How do you reduce the risk on this? How do we incorporate all the wonderful research in this room into to actually get into the hands of the producers, into the 14,000 livestock producers? There's a lot of great research is going on. And what's the output? You'll get a paper that a lot of producers won't read, or you'll get a single-purpose application where the farmer will have to go, create a new account, enter in all their data again to get one output. Then they have to go iterate between all the different websites. How do we bring that research into a product that the farmers use daily? And over that time, we've been collecting all this data. How can we actually make use of this data in an anonymized fashion, of course, to actually help researchers to create better tools for the producers? So I'm the first employee after the founders. I've been at AgriWebb over 8 years, started as head of engineering. And after 6 years, I realized we had this gap. We did a really good job of calculating all the records, like when you're talking about traceability, we've got the 26 animal records, including purchases and sales. We have a supply chain product. We can see that animals move across the whole supply chains. We're doing integrating with all the different grazing options with the feed on offer, pasture growth rate, and so on. But we did very little on the forecasting. We had very little interaction with the research going on, such an important area of research for Australia. And us, with a large market share, had very little interaction with the research. So I set up an R&D group at AgriWebb in this new role to foster these relationships with the universities, governments, industry bodies, research institutes, and also the integration partners, of which we've released this marketplace this year, so farmers can self-serve and select what integrations they want. So for third parties wanting to integrate, it's like a free integration, or we could manage your billing for you as well. Because we've found that integrations, they drive engagement. The more people doing integrations, the more they're using the product. So how do we make use of these universities? I'm going to cover a few steps here. Code studios, interns, capstone projects, CRCs, and PhDs. So my inspiration here is this guy called Eric Lander. Before 8 years ago, I came from bioinformatics, medical research, and this guy was considered like a god in bioinformatics. He was on all the important papers. He was the lead of the Human Genome Project in 2000, leading hundreds of biologists and bioinformaticians. And then I heard that this guy, he teaches first year MIT biology, which was compulsory. I thought, that didn't compute. If he's so important, why isn't he working on all the cutting edge stuff? And then so I actually did that course online. And what I found is he just really loves biology and he wants to get the smartest minds into biology. So when he teaches, he's inspiring the students and it's showing them what's possible. So the Code Studios, this is a group work that some universities can run. You'll have teams of like 7 to 8 people. In 2022, I ran 6 Code Studios, 45 students in total. So we could tackle some fun, hard projects, some high-risk projects. Let's throw machine learning. Or let's throw one of the important things that people want that isn't on the roadmap, like the calendar, or the weight projections for supply chain management. We created code templates so the students can get started quickly without having access to the full code base. We created this funny concept called AgriWebb University, which is just a series of videos created by our engineers on very specific topics to help the students get upskilled and started. And out of this is like a 6-month period for interviews, really. We can just go, hey, you, and you want a job. And the first job was productizing the Code Studio output. So for interns, in total, we hired 5 interns, and 2 of them have already converted, and 3 of them are still going. We keep it flexible working arrangements, so they can keep doing their university. We incorporate their final year engineering capstone project into our work. So we just pay them like normal wage, and they do their capstone project 2 days a week, and industry gets to keep the IP. So we've got a bunch of capstones currently active and finished some as well. And this is proper quality product that gets code reviewed and delivered into the system. CRCs. This is lucky yous, first ones to hear this. This is the announcement of the Food Agility's, I believe, the biggest project that we're just in contracting in at the moment. So it's 20 months in preparation, but it is, we've had a 9-month pilot so far, and we're about to start a 3-year project. So this is bringing in seasonal weather forecasting to understand seasonal pasture growth, to understand livestock growth, the sustainability metrics that come out of it, and also to build it into a grazing planner that you can make plans based on the different weather scenarios. And there's some wonderful partners there as well, SIBO Labs, Flint Pro, Optiway, and also bringing in the MLA. There's PhDs, there's multiple ways to work with PhDs in industry through the national industry PhDs, which are new as of this year, 2nd round at the moment. Universities offer industry placements, the CRCs offer PhDs, and the model that we use is going to be 2 days a week you can work on your PhD, 3 days we'll find work for you related to your PhD, and I know that works because that's how I got my PhD, back in bioinformatics. All right, thank you.
We now welcome our first panel discussion guests to the stage today. We have 2 speakers from yesterday's sessions. We have Pairtree Intelligence's Hamish Munro and Dr. Penny Schulz from the SA Drought and Innovation Hub. And they're joined on stage by Roram, my man and PhD student here at Charles Sturt University, Joshua Gilbert. And we're discussing digital transformation of agriculture, and in particular, how can we engage today's farmers to adopt emerging technology? I'll take a seat with you all. Yeah. All right, well, Penny, we'll start with you. You've completed a PhD on farmers' adoption of app technology, and you're a sheep and cattle farmer yourself from South Australia, so you're well placed to answer this question. What are the key things that ag tech companies and startups need to be doing to engage with producers to drive tech adoption on farm?
Yeah. It's not that simple, is it? I think you really need to start at the start. So I suppose any good or successful technology or product that's come out has started with the problem and not the other way around. And we're seeing that more and more now, that message has definitely gotten through, that if you're not starting with the problem, you've got a long road ahead to find a problem to solve with your technology. But also then having a bunch of producers that are coming along on that journey with you, that are continually providing you feedback, advice, to, I suppose, give you assurance that you're on the right track, and make sure you listen to the not so nice stuff. And make adjustments, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But from that adoption perspective, getting those insights from those producers about how it's working or not will help. I mean, a value proposition is what drives adoption, and if the producers that you're working with are not seeing it, maybe there isn't one, or you're not communicating it. And I guess I often say, if you have to explain why a joke is funny, it's not actually funny. So if you are having lots of trouble explaining why your product is really good and it's a game changer and it's going to make a difference, maybe it's not. So yeah, I think having those producers on board right from the start and solving their problems will set you on the right path at the very least.
Has that been your experience, Hamish? You're coming from an ag tech company. What's it been like getting farmers on board?
Yeah, I think one of the, if ag tech comes from a solution looking for a problem, there are definitely, someone trying to bring something from smart cities or mining or something straight out of research because someone spent 10 years developing something and it doesn't fit, then yeah, farmers can smell that a long way away. So talking to some guys this morning and this guy said, he spoke to someone last week or the week before and it was within 5 seconds he knew exactly what that person was talking about and he got it. So like Penny's saying, there's a pitch thing, but it's got to have value. Like at the end of the day, we all need to actually commercialise as ag tech companies. We need to be providing a service that someone will pay for that's materially adding value, not just a distraction. And Kenny just mentioned, sort of these apps that sort of stand alone, and that is a distraction now. And I think that's where farmers are looking for that. How does things connect together, or how do I get a greater insight? Like 1 + 1 = 3. That's what farmers need.
Yeah, absolutely. Josh, from your perspective as well, how should ag tech companies engage with Indigenous producers and stakeholders within the industry, and how are they going at the moment?
Yeah, thanks, Olivia. And I'd like to just acknowledge country, pay my respects to elders here, past and present on Wiradjuri country. I grew up not too far from here, so it's important for me to do that. And as a Warramah man, it's important to connect to country right across this place and acknowledge all the roles that elders have had across this place. For me, it's a really interesting question because often I feel like we think about Indigenous people as laggards in this space, or that there's some kind of difficulty in connection here. But the conversation is actually very different. Actually, Indigenous people were working on farms nearly from day dot. My own family experience, 1825, when AACO rolled into town, my family worked with them, alongside them, taking them to where the best water was, the best feed was. And we know Indigenous people have such a fast uptake in technology, actually faster than non-Indigenous people in Australia. So for me, it's a really important conversation that we actually include Indigenous people in this, that we rely upon them to work with them in this space, because they've got such a long-standing history and connection to this place, and can provide so much more insight into what the future of this place is going to look like as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Hamish, we've been speaking about this a lot, and as I said before, I've been hosting the AgTech Finder podcast, and nearly every AgTech company I've spoken to, when we ask what's next, they say data sharing and integration is the next big thing for them, and we've heard it all throughout this conference as well. Pairtree Intelligence obviously looks at centralising data, allowing farmers to layer up their data. Can you briefly explain to us just how that adds value to ag tech, and also farmers' understanding of that at the moment? Are they understanding the value there in data sharing?
Yeah. So as Gabby mentioned yesterday, I think the National Farmers Federation Voluntary Farm Data Code is a key piece, and that's building trust. And so Pairtree, that's why I've spent nearly 2 years on that committee, to get to a point where I had my two hats on with farmer and as ag tech, to make sure that the optics are clear on both sides of the fence to get that. So that's why, and again, that's why I push to be number one for that. But I think the process of really going forward is building trust for the farmers, and so Pairtree's business, the way we're talking about commercialisation a minute ago, is we sell integrations, we don't sell information. So everybody knows of the Facebooks or the Googles and the data mining and you know what's happening with data out there, and farmers are naturally sceptical or that in their own anyway, but let alone seeing and hearing and what's happening more globally with data and hacking and things like that. But data comes in a black box. You know, no one knows where it is. Is it in the cloud? Well, it's not in the cloud. It's somewhere in Chatswood in a data centre or somewhere like that sort of thing. So that's the reality of just farmers trying to get their head around, you know, how data is managed by all of the wonderful ag tech companies that AusAgriTech is supporting. And I think particularly somewhere between NFF and the AusAgriTech, which is the association that's now coming on board to look after policy and that for the ag tech companies nationally, is something that I'd probably urge farmers to be aware of and just see and keep an eye out for the badge, but also then see who actually the members of AusAgriTech and really there long term to build an ecosystem rather than just make a quick buck.
Yeah, absolutely. Penny, from your perspective, do you think that producers need to, as Hamish is saying, play a bit more of an active role when it comes to the sharing of their data? I mean, so often we just tick the box, yes, to terms and conditions and sort of interacting in a more passive way, but how can farmers be a bit more active and sort of empower farmers to be part of that process?
Yeah, I think it's a bit like technology adoption. The data sharing concept also needs to have a purpose for farmers to want to share it, and it also needs to be mutually beneficial. So I think in general, farmers are trusting, but they do have that scepticism like you're talking about. Like, so what are you going to do with my data? You know, are you going to sell it to somebody else for some profiteering? So if they know that benefit is mutually beneficial, then you've jumped over a big hurdle already. And I think we've spoken a lot the last couple of days about more connected value chains, whether that's for environmental credentials, whether that's for more price certainty or payment systems or something. And I think those sort of drivers, which we're going down, whether we like it or not, is going to be pushing us to share our data. But yeah, we need to ensure that it is going to be mutually beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. Josh, as we've been saying, sharing of information and knowledge, what we're talking about today, that's been done for over 60,000 years by First Nations communities. What sort of way do you see that technology can be utilised to record and share First Nations knowledge and farming practices today? You spoke about sort of your ancestors showing AACO where to go around the farm and that sort of thing. How do we do that in that modern context?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many ways, and I guess utilising the existing technology is really important as well. So we know, mob rely upon the same technology as what we all do. Often, while we're quick adopters, often there are barriers to entry as well. So, I spoke to somebody this morning who was talking about having to use power cards to still get access to electricity in their hometown. They're the kind of difficult conversations I think we need to make sure that we bring that the bottom up and have that base capability before we expand. But certainly, one of the biggest opportunities I think we have in Australia is opening the door to that 60,000 years plus of knowledge, that it's all sitting there. And I think we'd be really remiss if we had a library full of information and we had 60,000 years of that built up. I think we'd all flock to it, and we all have it there. It's just that we're not engaging with it properly. So for me, what it does provide is this really exciting and high-tech way to capture some of the knowledge that's still there. Also capture the last 200 years, because I think that adoption curve is really big in Indigenous communities. We've gone from having this really sophisticated understanding of this landscape, and then have had non-Indigenous society just like planted straight on the top, and have been able to adopt and succeed in that world, just the same as everyone else. So there's a lot of learnings that we can take out of there. And then I think when we look to the future, actually really acknowledging what the past has been, where we are now, and then thinking about what that future opportunity will be, I think we have this huge opportunity to rethink that, sit down, have a yarn, and then work out what all those connection points could mean so that we can have that joint future together.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess looking at it completely the opposite side of the spectrum, artificial intelligence. Hamish, we'll start with you. What sort of role do you see artificial intelligence playing and impacting on agriculture in the future, and what role will data sharing have on that?
Yeah, so probably everyone's familiar with ChatGPT. So I think ChatGPT is going to be really interesting in some degrees and next to useless in many degrees. Now, the reason I say that is particularly if you give a chef a recipe and not the ingredients, then the chef can't cook. And so ChatGPT, in its own essence, could run the best cropping cycle in the world. But, and this is where the farmer has the power of data, and where the power of data sharing will go forward, is if I'm sowing a Roundup Ready canola or a TT variety canola, if I've got a plant back issue when I actually go and put a wheat or a chickpea crop in after that, a satellite company can see that I put canola in there, but they don't know what that variety is. They don't know what the acidity is. They don't know what the nutrients or clay pans or things like that. They can just see it's a high-low yielding paddock. So particularly issues about plant back, about variety, about genetics, all of these things, particularly in livestock sort of thing as well, is that, yes, ChatGPT will be a great aid for an agronomist when it has all of this data that the farmers built up from the livestock management software, from the farm management software, from the weather stations that are particularly hyper-local to that paddock, or the soil probes that are actually telling you a full depth of moisture through that, you know, sort of thing, particularly, you know, growing cotton in black soil. If there is a gap like that, that crop is doomed right from the start, you know, under 10 centimetres, and you need data from the farm.
Penny, what about you? What do you think of the role it will play and how it's going to integrate with the human hand as well?
I'm actually really excited. Particularly from my role off farm as well, where it's more of a adoption-focused, educating, extending information. I can see it's got a role there. For those in the room that have put projects together where they've got to, you know, have a resource hub that's central, that, you know, people can easily find information, or you've got to write case studies. I actually think AI is going to help us a lot in that space. You've got to have the right ingredients somewhere for it to drag it in, so that's going to be vital. But that's probably the bit we can control, and I think we can use AI to bring the information to the right place for the right purpose. But there's also other cool applications. So another hat in the broader landscape, where I'm involved with feral pest control, and the applications that it's being used in that space is really exciting, where it can recognise the right pests and provide the right solution, particularly baits that are a bit dangerous to other species. It is really exciting. Yeah. So we're able to recognise if it's a deer or a wild dog or something, and not a possum, so you don't kill the possum. And that's what we should be using it for. So those really exciting, difficult to, those really challenging problems, and using the technology to have a go at solving them.
Oh, that's really interesting. Well, Josh, where do you sit? We've got some cautionary words. We've got an enthusiast. What do you think about artificial intelligence?
I might be bang smack in the middle, I think. I think for me, it provides a really exciting opportunity, but sense checking it is very important. So, you know, I've had some colleagues recently who have tested it to see whether they can make up Dreamtime stories using ChatGPT, and just to see how real some of these could be. And you know, there's certainly elements of truth that come out, but there's definitely a lot of made up mythic stories that they can do as well. And I think when we look at it in terms of ag, there's a lot of information to process very quickly, and I think we just need to make sure that that's all true going in, so that we get the truth coming out. So I think we could get caught up in you know, these real kind of differing understandings of what's going on, or what the future could be.
Yeah, absolutely. Penny, I wanted to talk to you about, also you looked in your PhD about the adoption of app technology, and we are talking with Hamish about integration of data. What have you found in terms of farmers' willingness to get on board another app? And Hamish, then we'll throw to you on how we solve that problem.
Yeah. The number one thing, the two key things is value proposition. Always makes it much easier to sell and easy to use. It's not rocket science, and pretty much every piece of technology that's out there claims to be easy to use, but the actual, you know, success rate of that being true is pretty low. So I think having that genuine thing about solving someone's actual problem and making their life easier is a really easy sell, so long as it's true. And the other thing is it's got to integrate and be compatible with other things. And that's come up a number of times. Kenny mentioned it. AgriWebb has spent so much time trying to collaborate with everybody else in the ecosystem, and it's paid dividends, but that's not easy. And I've actually told you this story, but I'm going to tell it now. When I first met Hamish, pre-COVID, it's like BC versus AC. I thought, oh, what a great service and product and platform that Hamish has got. And I thought, oh, in a few years' time, we won't even need it. Felt sorry for Hamish that he's got this great thing, everyone's interested, and it's solving these problems because nothing's talking to each other, but he's bringing it all in. But, the next few years, that just won't even be, we won't even be talking about that. And here I am up on stage with him. We're still talking about integrating things. So we've clearly still got a long way to go, but it has come a long way still. And now products like Pairtree and even within AgriWebb itself, we're moving from just showing information and data and bringing other data sources in to turning it into decision making. So that's the next challenge, is not just showing farmers more data, but it's about which bits are critical for making that decision. And drought resilience, and we're sort of moving into that space again, is do I keep them? Do I sell them? If I keep them, how much is it going to cost me? Where do I put them? There's actually information out there that supports all those decisions, whether it's climatic information, soil moisture information overlaid with actual rainfall, and what the past has told us as well about the same thing that happened not so long ago. We've got that information, but it's about bringing it all together, and we could even automate the decision making, and then you sort of give it your own truth telling. And I think we need to move into that space and do it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And as we've spoken about before, automating data entry would be very
Oh yeah, my auto-filmation. Maybe AI will fix that as well. Yeah.
Well, yes, Hamish, I guess you sort of play a role that could be seen as that sort of broker, and digitisation often reduces the need for brokers, but obviously here it's very needed. Where do you see it sort of going in the future?
Well, that's right. Like Pairtree doesn't want to create data. We just want to facilitate that out of 100 things that might be in AgriWebb, there's just 4 things that need to go in an ESG thing, then some other data from wherever. So that's where I think that for Pairtree, it's really about farmers adopting any ag tech that has the value proposition that fits their operation, large, small, within succession planning, about to go in succession planning, post-succession planning, post-drought, pre-drought, all of these different dynamics that forces someone to say, right, well, I would love top shelf, but I've got to go for bottom shelf at the moment, so I'll buy the cheapest weather station or whatever it's going to be, just to get how much rain I had at the back of the farm. So that's the piece where I think long-term that everyone, to have a clear value proposition, you need to be extremely clear about what your offer is and the ease of collecting or adding that data in, and then at the end of the day, the ESG pressures or the carbon pressures or the reporting to the banks or wherever else that data may go, that's where there's going to be more and more services built over the top that aren't data collectors, are only data aggregators that are actually going to facilitate another layer on top of the great ag tech collectors that have the direct relationship with the farmer and is providing that value prop, and then there's a value prop from the top down that will sort of meet in the middle, I think.
I'm glad you're in charge, Hamish. That sounds great. Well, thank you so much to our panel members, to Josh, Hamish and Penny for joining us. And Josh, you can stay there. You're on the next one, but thank you, Hamish and Penny.
Thank you.
So our final showcase and panel discussion for the 2023 Digital Agri-Food Summit welcomes 4 minds to the stage to tackle the age-old question of the agricultural workforce. There's no denying that it's changing, so how can we encourage more workers to the sector? That's a question for PIEFA CEO Luciano Mesiti, Research Manager and Executive Recruiter of Agricultural Appointments Elizabeth Wells, And they're joining previous speakers. We have Associate Professor at Central Queensland University, Amy Cosby, back on stage. And as we said before, Roromai man and PhD student here at CSU, Joshua Gilbert. Welcome, everyone. Luciano, we'll start with you. You run the Primary Industries Education Foundation of Australia. Can you tell us about what have been some of the challenges that exist now in getting young people into the agricultural industry?
Thank you. There are lots of challenges in terms of getting more young people engaged in agriculture, and I think some of the core issues are the perception that young people and communities in general have about what is agriculture. Generally, the perception is that agriculture equals farming, and that agriculture is the perception of it being old man on a tractor. And a very unsustainable industry, and that's a general sort of perspective, and I think that sort of pervades the thoughts of a lot of not only young people, teachers, but parents as well. And so we're up against that to begin with, and I think there's a lot of challenges around that. So that's an image issue. Another part of the challenges is that I think we need to support teachers with high quality programs and resources, professional development, as Amy mentioned in her speech, and I think targeting it in such a way, and I think what Amy's doing, going into schools and providing direct direction to teachers, is really important, because teachers are time poor, they can't get out of school. There's a real crisis in the education system with the lack of teachers to cover classes, casual teachers, etc. There's lots of challenges there. So engaging teachers, but also careers advisors, because they are also part of this whole picture of getting information into schools and supporting young people with more up-to-date knowledge and understanding about what are the career opportunities. And we're not just talking about agriculture teachers, we're talking about teachers who teach all disciplines. And we're not just talking about high school. And we know for a fact that if we engage at an early age in primary schools and all the way into high schools, we have a higher return on investment in terms of the education of kids about agriculture and their potential for engaging in industries post-school. So, and one more challenge, I think, is also that being an ex-agriculture teacher myself, I worked for about 10 years in a high school teaching agriculture, and I think one of the biggest challenges that I face, but also a lot of other teachers, is to get industry into schools and connecting industry with school programs. And I think that shouldn't be a challenge. It should be something that we should be doing all the time. And I think that's, a really important outcome from me in the last 2 days here is that there's so much amazing things happening in agri-tech. And we need to tell those stories in the classroom, and we need to work out ways in which we can better engage with schools to bring those stories into the classroom.
Well, that leads us very well to Amy. Amy, it was really interesting listening to your talk and the results from your survey, and I think what you said about how important it is for industry to play a role and be more active in that role of getting more people into the agricultural workforce. As you said, it's a long game when we're showing around primary school aged students, but it does pay off. Is that what you've really seen? Yeah, can you tell us a bit more?
Yeah, so I think, we're all, if we're in the agricultural business, we want to see a return on our investment. And I think education's hard because, like I said, it is a long game, but I think it is important. And we work really well with AgriWebb and Kenny and his team, and Escavox with Luke Wood, and trying to get those sorts of technologies into the classroom so that, it's got that added benefit of not only do they know about those technologies, so if they go back to work into agriculture, they're familiar with them, they adopt them in their business, but we're giving them digital literacy, digital capability skills, so they're transferable into a range of sectors. So I think, industry is vital for in the classroom, getting them to be working on real world problems. How often do you hear, if you've got older children, mine are still too young for this, but I didn't learn anything in maths today, I'm never going to use this. Well, we can show them how we can use accelerometer data that we collect off animals, you know, how what they're doing in the classroom with maths has real world applicability. And I think if we can help teachers make their lessons more relevant, engage students, improve their knowledge, that's great for them as well as us as an industry. But I think, you know, getting out, seeing, you know, taking them to businesses, seeing all those different things, we're improving those community perceptions that Luch mentioned. We're showing them that it's not old blokes on tractors. We're seeing how they use data and technology and all the women involved in agriculture. But we're also, you know, raising their aspirations to have a career in ag. So I think anything we do as an industry with students has that added knowledge of hopefully they won't be protesting about what we do, so they don't think we're environmental vandals because they understand what we're doing. But also hopefully then we can, you know, they meet someone and like, I want to be that person and I want their job.
Yeah, you don't know what you can't see, as
Yeah.
you said. Josh, how do you think we can look to diversify agriculture's workforce to help fill this capability gap?
Yeah, so if I expand on Luch's point maybe to start with, it's old white guys on tractors, and that's kind of some of the issue. And even when we think about the old school, you know, Western movies that existed, it wasn't until the 1940s actually that we started having black people on screen playing cowboy roles. So, you know, it was quite some time, and, you know, 1940s, you know, led on to this kind of quite a few decades of not having any Indigenous or black cowboys that, you know, gave people that aspiration. So I think, you know, picking up on the you can't be what you can't see, we don't showcase Aboriginal people farming in terms of Western farming anywhere. You can't pick up the, you know, the newspaper and see that. You can't pick up, you know, ag career booklets and see that. You can't even pick up the National Farmers Federation roadmap of Indigenous engagement and see an Aboriginal person on the front cover. You see a picture of a cow. So there's a whole heap of things that we need to be doing around showcasing what does Indigenous careers in agriculture look like, and also making sure that we don't just throw back into this cultural norm of, oh, well, Indigenous people can just farm bush foods. We really need to open it up and say, you know, we can have Indigenous drone pilots out there and that involved in agriculture, and that's amazing, and we should be showcasing that. Right now, we have about 2.1% of the agricultural workforce that identify as Indigenous, and there's a huge role, I think, in terms of our, you know, our social license to operate to really build that. We know Indigenous people own about 60% of Australia. They own about 80% in terms of Northern Australia. But that underrepresentation in terms of the workforce showcases that we need a lot of work, and we need to really start investing in that. So I think for me, we'll have this, we need a bottom-up approach. We need black fellas talking to black fellas and actually showing them that they belong in this industry and that they are supported through their journey there. And equally from the top down, we need organisations that commit to reconciliation action plans, who actually have targets around in hiring Indigenous graduates and Indigenous workforces to help kind of balance that out, to really showcase what diversity looks like. I think probably the only other thing I'd say is, you know, Indigenous diversity is important, but there's a whole realm of diversity, and all the different crossovers of that are equally as important as well. So we know we have, you know, Indigenous people with disability, for instance. Well, what does it look like for them? What does it look like for other ethnicities with disability or other kind of diversity dimensions? We need to explore all of that and make sure that we have that broad church within agriculture more generally.
Yeah, absolutely. Elizabeth, you are in this day-to-day, you're looking to recruit these roles.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about what are going to be some of the jobs of the future in agriculture and how you think we should equip graduates to be ready for them?
Yeah, thank you. I would kind of preface this by saying that a lot of the jobs already exist and they're perhaps at university or TAFE or doing their trades, but the industry and the technology is moving forward. So there are two things that we are seeing. One is adaptability to the change and ability to be able to learn. And the second thing, which is very big, is location. But I think that what Kenny Sabir said earlier about the coders, I really see that as emblematic of what is happening. He's looking for a particular skill in an area that never existed 10 years ago. 5 years ago it started to. We all felt it was coming 20 years ago. But here it is now, and then he he's talking to these young coders and saying, hey, you can do Internet of Things, you can do this, this and this, and they've got no awareness of it. And to me, that's just emblematic of it. But so, for example, if we look at something more traditional that's very scientific, agronomists or viticulturalists who are looking at soil, what they were studying now, there's going to be so much more technology by the time they graduate. Another classic one that's, I guess, is easy to understand, is very exciting for a lot of young people to get into an electrical trade or a diesel mechanics trade. But even what they're studying now, there are brand new programs that are going to be coming out by the time they graduate. So that's kind of how I interpreted your question. And of course, that's with, we had the lady speaking from the piggery and the high-tech kind of needs that would be there for her service technicians. Her maintenance manager now, who was at the piggery 10 years ago, wouldn't be able to handle those generators. That's just a classic example of how it's moulding and changing.
Yeah, absolutely. Luciano, when we're talking about ag tech in agriculture, is this something that is filtering down into the school syllabuses? What are we seeing there?
Well, technology or science and technology is a part of the Australian curriculum, and that's the entry point for talking about food and fibre, and that's where agriculture sits. So there's already a range of opportunities to talk about ag tech, but in the context of that, generally, unless you're teaching something that's directly agriculture or within that food area, then there won't be those examples in the classroom. So there's opportunities for that discussion, but teachers need support to be able to teach that and share that with their students, and to really work those new examples. I mean, technology is changing all the time, that's a no-brainer at the moment, and so teachers are time poor. And they need opportunities in which they can better learn how to engage and understand what are the changes, how to integrate it into the curriculum and integrate it into their teaching. So great opportunities there within the curriculum, but teachers need that support to enable them to bring it to life.
Amy, what are your thoughts there? You're obviously a dairy farmer, one of the most, I guess, digital and automated industries.
Yeah, one of the reasons.
Oh, we got you there.
Yeah, one of the reasons I can be here is that this year we put in automatic calf feeders, so I can feed 70 calves from my app, which is great. I think that there is lots of opportunities in the curriculum for teachers to teach about ag tech, but I think, as Luch has pointed out as well, is that teachers if they're not going to teach something they're not confident in, you don't want to get up in front of a group of 25 kids and to be found out because you don't quite understand. So I think in New South Wales in particular, we've been really lucky that we have a very progressive Department of Education, and they have supported CQU to develop a range of different resources, and one of our flagship courses is GPS Cows, where we've got schools collecting livestock tracking data using research-grade tracking collars. They download that data, they use ArcGIS, so an Esri product, a geographical information system that we've partnered with Esri to make freely available to all schools and students. And that way that they're integrating it into the classroom, they're seeing, but from their school animals or from a local industry, because again, grabbing a data set off the internet that they've got no affinity with is not as engaging. So that's been really well supported by the department by getting professional development workshops face-to-face and online. So I think the key is to, we're doing AgriWebb as well in Victoria, is having face-to-face professional development opportunities, which are tricky with the teacher shortage, no casuals, wherever we can, support them with webinars, but as a research group, we're available to troubleshoot if they're having issues in the classroom, which I think that follow-up support, knowing where to go is vital.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much to our panel speakers this afternoon. Thank you, Elizabeth, Josh, Luciano and Amy. Can we give them a round of applause?